Hey guys, welcome back to Break the Gate podcast. We have Jeff Menig. He's the artist manager for Left to Suffer, and he's also a music industry vet. He's been in and out for a long time. Love to have you on. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing some of your tribal knowledge a bit. I really like that you kind of went to Facebook for a lot of the things that you were seeing bands were doing wrong as a way to kind of help. So immediately with that, I was like, this guy needs to come on the podcast because we're very much of a try to help people out type of thing. That is my way of the old saying of if you can't do teach. I was in the industry in and out for a while, then I got out, and now I'm doing not necessarily the teaching, but the introduction to the teaching. So thank you, Jeff, for coming on. That was a long intro.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. And yeah, I feel as though a lot of that just stems from basically dedicated my entire life to this. So I want to see as many people succeed
Yeah.
because it's just going to make it better for everybody. Um, and I also get annoyed that it seems like people don't learn from other people's mistakes. And
Yep.
you see the bands in this generation making some of the same mistakes that bands 10 years ago made. And that's just, you would have thought that maybe they would have paid a little bit more attention.
Some people are very much of a, I see you doing it that way. I'm still going to do it my way because I think my way's right. You know?
Right. Well, everyone sees what Bring Me the Horizon is doing, and so they want to
Yeah.
do it that way, and they don't realize Bring Me the Horizon can do it that way because they're already that freaking big. Like,
100%.
you need to do things your way at your level first
Right.
before. Yeah, there's steps to
Yeah.
this for
So
sure.
before we get too much into this, because I can already tell this is going to be a really interesting conversation, because it sounds like you and I have a lot of the same beliefs. Could you go into a little bit of the history of how you got into the music industry and how you ended up to where you're at now? And if it's a long answer, you can take as long as you want.
It's kind of long, but I've said it enough now where I have it kind of uh,
Condensed.
condensed. Yeah. So in I'm 41 years old. I started going to shows in 1996 or 1997 when
Okay.
I was in high school.
Sure.
Started my first band when I was in high school, and we played at our local venue once every 3 months whenever they would book us, and we would sell tickets, and that, you know what I mean? And after doing that a couple of times, we're like, okay, this is cool, but we want to do more. How the heck do we get shows in other areas? Because this is pre-internet, basically. And so somebody just jokingly said one day in lunch class, if you put on your own show, then you can just have your band open. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Let me figure out how to do that. So I figured out how to put together a show. Did my first one in September of '99 when I was a senior in high school, and that show, for whatever reason, just it was like all of the. I had like a light bulb moment where I was just like, "Yep, this is what is meant for me, and this is what I'm going to do." And I just haven't stopped since then, basically. Um, so for 4 years, I did nothing but DIY shows. Then I moved up, got a job at a venue, uh, booked shows in Poughkeepsie, New York, mostly for a long time, up through like 2013. Then I was brought on and was involved in the Bamboozle Festival and Six Flags Festival and Skate and Surf Festival, all back in the 2010 to 2012, 2013 timeframe. And then doing all of that led me to discovering that I didn't want to end up in a club at 50 years old still doing that because I see what those guys look like.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to try and flip to a different part of the industry. Started managing bands, picked up my first band. They were called Sworn In. We kind of blew them up very quickly, and it was like a whole thing. Um, then I went away for a little bit after my father unfortunately passed away. I needed to like take a couple of years to kind of gather my thoughts. Then I came back as the marketing director at the Masquerade in Atlanta, Georgia. I was there for 4.5 years up until about a year and a half ago. Um, that is where I met the guys that would end up becoming the band Left to Suffer. Uh, and then during the pandemic, I launched and sold the website featuredex.com.
Wow, that sounds like a very um, unique experience. You know, got a lot of different things in there.
Yes, my life has been. My friends like to say that I have endless stories.
Yeah.
So it's been a fun ride. It's been difficult for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, um, especially since the beginning, I've always wanted to do things my own way. I've never liked the way things were uh, set up already. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of it didn't make sense. Uh, so I've done it all kind of as a industry maverick, so to speak, the whole
Sure.
time.
Yeah. And you, it
Yeah.
sounds like you kind of grew up too in the early introduction of almost mainstream transition from punk to like screamo, too, right? So, because like the
Yeah.
early
So
'90s was like starting to get into the screamo era, and then you started seeing a lot of bands kind of come through, like Under Oath, and then that's when they started really boom the screamo age.
yeah, I, I in junior high I was listening to Nirvana and
Mm-hmm.
grunge and that kind of stuff. Got into high school, and one of our friend's older brothers just gave us a mixtape, and he was like, "You guys need to be listening to this."
Yeah.
All right, and it was Gorilla Biscuits, Black Flag,
Oh yeah.
all the classic original hardcore, Minor Threat, all that stuff,
Yep.
and all of that. We were super pumped on that, and at the time, Victory Records had a zine that they ran. It
Mm.
was a it was like half zine, half mail order catalog. I feel as though like the zine part of it was there just to get eyes on it, to get people to then use it to buy
Yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely.
Um, but literally, we just got an issue of one of those from his brother, and it was just okay. Four fans of this and this and this, cool. We like those bands, so let's just buy all this stuff. And so we were just diving into, at that point it was Earth Crisis, Snapcase,
Oh yeah.
Hatebreed, All Out War, Integrity,
Yep.
Buried Alive, all that stuff. But it very quickly, the screamo stuff started to pop up. All of the bands that loved Cave In
Mm.
decided to put in emo
Their
and
own
other things
thing.
into their music, and then
Yep.
from Autumn to Ashes, and all those bands popped up, and
Oh yeah.
everything changed from there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I,
I've seen it firsthand since 1997.
yeah.
The
That's
evolution of it all.
a
It's crazy.
cool perspective. The only other person that I've had on this podcast that has been in the early days of that particular industry was Randy Nichols.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he very much the same type of background, of where he kind of got started, but he also, started getting really heavy into the management side of things in the early '90s. Right around that same transition period for music, which was such a pivotal moment, and determined what the next 20 years was going to look like.
Yeah, I mean it's you can see the landscape of young bands today, and it's
Yeah,
influenced them all.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. No, it's cool. It was like the perfect. It was the internet was just becoming a thing, so
Yep.
that kind of opened the floodgates for a lot of discovery. And I personally am a fan of streaming because I feel as though it's let everyone be exposed to every kind of music way more than they've ever been before.
Yep.
And now it's like, you see hip hop in everything, but now you see metal in everything
Yeah,
too.
you do. And they're
Right.
crossing
whether it's
Yeah.
Drake sharing
Yeah.
Entheos in his story, or whether it's Lil Uzi Vert doing a song
Or
for
you
New
could go the
Horizon.
Dropout Kings realm, and it's metal and rap, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like a combination, and they're a great combination of both.
Absolutely.
So anyway, so we'll go right into it here with the questions. As an artist manager, how do you approach different release strategies for your clients? I mean, do you kind of what other kind of things do you look at when planning that?
I plan way far in advance, and I'm typically so the way I've been looking at Left to Suffer is what I'm trying to do. The goal is to quote unquote break the band, right?
Mm-hmm.
To have them get through that ceiling and they're doing X amount of tickets and they're not going anywhere. So from the beginning, I have never put too much onus into any one release because I knew it was going to be the cumulative of all of them that was going to get us to where we needed to go, which then point I felt we could take a step back and then really concentrate on a release to release um, basis. So my strategy is very much linking all of the releases together so there's not too much gaps or dips. I like to control the
Okay.
momentum. And I feel as though it's easy to control in the current state of things. Um, so that's like the overarching part of how I go into it.
Could you
I
go into some
listened.
examples? Like, is it like a waterfall type of release strategy, or is there something more
So
intricate
I
to
mean,
it?
no, I mean we've done that stuff too,
Yeah.
but it's more so shortening everything, I guess. In my mindset, a record cycle is 9 months now, not 2 years.
Sure. Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and plus, if you just look at our release schedule, they've been a band a little over 4 years. It's like we really haven't gone more than 3 months without putting out something.
Right.
Um, and I, my mind, I've been in marketing my whole life. So my mindset is just there's 100,000 songs coming out every day. There's way more of everything, so you just need to do way more consistently to break through. And it might be unfortunate to some people because they don't like that, but that's just the way that it is. So I just lean into it and use the platforms, I guess, the way that they're intended to be used, to
Yeah.
be honest.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, a lot of people try to come up with their own strategies that they just conjure up in their brains and then say, I know that these tools are there and everybody's kind of saying, even the platforms are saying, use these tools, but I don't believe them. I'm going to do my own thing. But contrary to popular belief, and there's proof, and there's proof in the pudding about it. If you actually use the tools that are there, it works. They're not just kind of blowing smoke up your ass. They're trying to tell you, hey, these are the tools that are there. This is why it's there. And if you're looking for X result, this is the tools that you need to get there. Sure, there's a
Yep.
little bit of creativity to it. There's a little bit of persistence. But the tools are there to use. You know, not to kind of
Yeah, I
not.
I honestly think most people don't realize that like Facebook, Instagram, they're tools
Mm-hmm.
and they're built and constructed to be used a certain way.
Right.
And it seems as though everyone just wants to use them and wants them to work the way that they just want them to work, right?
Right.
And it's like you're trying to use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, right? You're not
Yeah.
using the tool correctly. Um, yeah. So,
Yeah. I feel like some of it's
I'll,
just building
yeah.
a solid foundation too, and we kind of talked about this a little bit offline about everybody's trying to do what Bring Me the Horizon is doing, but they're not at Bring Me the Horizon level. You kind of have to get your footwork there, before you can get to that point. At least then you know what works and what doesn't work if you just stick with some sort of set strategy, and then you can kind of tweak it based off of what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is the more you put out, the more it's like the more songs that you write, the more songs you record, the more songs you put out. You're doing reps, right?
Right.
You're getting in the gym and putting up 500
Yeah.
three-pointers, right? Like that's what
Yep.
you're
Yep.
doing. And it's like Left to Suffer, in my opinion, is just now starting to find themselves with the songs that they just recorded.
Mm.
So many people already have a ton of opinions because they've gotten as big as they have so quickly and put out so much music. But it's because of no, it's reps. It's let's keep working on stuff. Let's keep experimenting. Let's keep pushing the boundaries.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's fun. I have this conversation with a lot of people lately where, if people will complain about having to create content and put out, content and social media and all that stuff. And then they say they just want to, they just want to be artists and they just want to
Yeah.
write their music. So then I say, okay,
Yep.
so then write a lot more music and
Right.
put it out. And then they are up in arms about telling them to do that too. So I'm just like, so you just want to be able to do what you want when you want, and
and
that's it.
and blow up off of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like that's just unfortunately not how the world
Yeah.
operates.
Right. I mean, you can't go into a job and expect that same mentality. You know.
I would hope not.
Right.
You
So,
never know.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Speaking of social media platforms, what are some of the things that you do, for Left to Suffer, to kind of engage and build that audience? Because I know and I know it's probably different for every artist, but at least as a kind of a
Not
mindset
really.
starter. No. Okay.
No. Yeah. No. Social media in my head is very easy, and it's it's all about engagement. The algorithms are going to push whatever, if it's Instagram, the posts that are getting the most comments or likes or shares or whatever they consider the engagement being the most thing. For Spotify, the engagement is people saving the song.
Okay.
So, on every platform, the engagement metric that platform uses, that's just all that matters. So, my strategy is for every action, there's an equal to greater reaction. So we use their band account and we go and engage with people first rather than waiting for. I feel most bands put out, like, will post something and they're waiting for people to come to the post to comment for them to then finally jump in. We never waited for that. It's no, we're going to put ourselves out there 10 times more than everyone else for a consistent period of time. And because I'm aware of how all the bands in our scene operate, I know if we just do that by default, our name is gonna grow because no one likes self promoting or posting on the internet or algorithms and you know what I mean, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, our strategy from the jump was just we need to post every day. We need to engage.
And that was what I was just going to ask. What is the strategy for the day to day thing? Is it like a daily? Is it depending on the platform?
I mean, it, we want it to be daily. Though it's very hard to keep up with that
Yeah.
day in and day out unless this isn't a corporation where we have a whole staff. It's just us doing it. So we try to do it every single day. Lately, at first, it was for sure every day. In my opinion, as a band gets bigger, you could start to post a little bit less and a little bit less because as your brand takes hold and becomes stronger and stronger, you can take your time to do things in between projects and in between posts. And your fans are already there and established and waiting for you. Right now, we're still in the building up um, um, demand. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like still building their brand. Um, so anyway, so from jump, it's just been put out as much as possible, both from the band account and their personal accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good one
it's
too. The
just,
personal counts.
the analogy that I use in my consultations is the internet is like the base is like a baseball stadium during the home run derby. And everyone, when they're on social media, they're just running around the outfield picking up balls. And content creators are just batters trying to hit home runs, trying to go viral,
I
right?
like
Trying to have a
that.
number one.
Yeah.
But they're just, most of the time, they're hitting them into the outfield, hitting, whatever. But at this point, the stadium's fucking full of balls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's never ending balls. So people are walking around and they pick up a ball and it's like, whose logo is on it? So if the more balls we can hit out into the outfield, the more likely the kids wandering the outfield are going to pick up one of our balls.
That's true. You're absolutely right. That's a really good analogy. I haven't heard that one before. But that makes it makes so much more sense. Of how to explain that process a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, it's like I'm also aware that you know the overnight success viral thing is not real. You know what I mean? It's built up momentum that
Mm-hmm.
finally hits a popping point. Um, so I yeah, so
Yeah.
I just knowing how that works and just being like, yep, no, that's just the way that we have to approach it. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so
The viral
yeah,
thing too is such a hit or miss. I mean, because you could get a ton of viral people. I have a friend who went viral on a couple of his TikToks,
yep.
but now he's not. You know what I mean? So it's like it really just kind of depends, and there's no really set technique for it. It just happens. So
Well, the other thing too
yeah,
is going viral is one thing, but then
retaining.
understanding how to one retain it
Yeah,
and two how to convert that virality and get ROI out of it,
yeah,
how to monetize it. That's a totally different skill set that
absolutely.
most people I feel like don't have. So yeah,
Right, right. I think one of the success stories was Rivals. But I mean they were grinding it for a while too, so they do deserve the fact that they did go viral. But that was a very big thing that they didn't recognize. Their management team recognized was that okay, they just went viral. Let's capitalize this. Let's hit every name in the book and see who we can get them on the road. Let's get them on the road as much as possible afterwards so we can stay relevant. And they were able to maintain and grow that following that way. I mean, of course, it wasn't probably the same plateau that they hit, when they weren't viral, but at least they were able to make a huge jump up to a point to where they were able to actually, start making a living off of it and, collect a decent amount of ROI on it. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I don't even like baseball, but it's just
yeah,
really easy to use for analogies.
right,
I'm very aware that there's been multiple teams that have won the World Series just hitting fucking singles and doubles.
right, right.
Yeah, like they're not the Yankees just hitting home runs left and right. They're playing defense and they're
Yep,
playing baseball the way it's supposed to be played, right?
absolutely.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
How,
yeah.
no, sorry.
I was gonna say I feel like I have a good understanding of how momentum works and how to
Yeah,
forecast when it's going to start to dip off and understanding that that's the point that we have to do our next thing so that we don't let the energy that we just created drop back down to where it once was.
right. It's like, did you ever play Kitty Cannon?
No, what's that?
No, okay. It was like an
No.
old an old computer game where like it was very like it was like early 2000s computer game where you had a kitten and it's kind of messed up, but you had a kitten in a cannon and then like you would angle it, to try to get the most amount of reach as possible.
Yeah.
And then
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while it would start going down, but you would hit like a bomb and then it would go back up again and then or it would hit spikes and that was it. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100. Yes, I feel as though my brain kind of looks at rollouts and how to grow bands exactly like that game.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's your there's your secondary analogy there.
Yeah.
So on the aspect of local artists though, what kind of advice would you give to them to grow in their home market? Outside of social media. I mean, obviously, social media is the first thing that they should be doing, but is there anything else that they could be doing to kind of grow?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, our scene has an issue of patience and understanding supply and demand. So, I feel as though most bands, you know, whether it's giving too much supply, as in playing in their hometown way too often,
Mm,
or putting out just dropping a full length record out of nowhere when they have no fans, or it's like I didn't even let Left to Suffer print merch for their first show, even though I knew we would sell merch.
right.
And it was, hey, no, like, even though I know we will, we're not going to, because we're going to build the demand. And then when we do go and sell merch, we're going to sell 10 times more than we would
That's a really good technique. How do you retain that? So if somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I noticed you don't have any merch. Do you? When can I get merch?" And say, "Oh, let's come in soon." How do you retain that conversation to, "Oh, now we have merch. Here's your chance."
have. The way that I approach that is really just out of since we're doing so much, right? Since we're posting on social media so much more than most bands, since
Mm-hmm.
we're engaging so much more than most bands, at one point in time, up until like maybe a year ago, they were also, every member was going live for 20, 30, 60 minutes, one day a week. So their channels are going live 5 days a week. Then on top of that, we're releasing music once every 8 to 12 weeks. On top of that, we're consistently running good Facebook ads that are created in a way that they're going to run effectively.
Mm.
And we're just hitting people. We're just so consistent in everything that we do from every angle. Then in my head, it's like the scene is very small. So all of these kids, even the ones that are like they're only going to like one show every so often, like, because we're putting out so much, they're gonna see our name, or they're gonna see our logo, or they're gonna hear about us, and then they're gonna see it again, and then they're gonna see it again, and eventually they're gonna go and check it, go and click. They're
Mm.
just going to. It's
That's
just a
yeah,
patience game.
yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking with the logos thing, how do you ensure that your artists' social media content kind of aligns with their overall brand image? Because every band has its own image. And you
Yeah.
just mentioned how sometimes it's really hard to post every day. But how do you kind of keep that brand image through that process?
Well, I mean, with Left to Suffer, it's kind of easy
Mm-hmm.
because on a personal level, their brand is just, they're nice guys they like to smoke weed and vibe out.
Hell yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, on the band level, you know, it, just coming up for every project or release, I just really take a step back and try and come up with a theme that everything we do can be encapsulated in that theme somewhat. Um, so when we did the On Death EP and it was just literally, Taylor was like, "This is what the EP is about. It's about this, the whatever that's called. Crap, I forget. Uh, what is that called?
I'm
Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
do, but I'm blanking on it. Isn't that funny how that works? Whenever somebody can't think of something, the other person can't either. It's like there's this
Yeah,
like weird cosmic brain gap.
but yeah, but everybody knew what it was
Yeah.
when we announced it because they saw the track names. They're like, oh, okay.
Right.
So it was just okay. So that's what it is. So I always start super simple, honestly, and I just start Googling and image Google searching and like going on Wikipedia and going
Mm.
on Google image search and just searching the basic themes of what the music is about, of what
Yeah.
Taylor told me, right?
Right.
And I use those very basic things of what the AI shows me as a starting point. Because I'm
Yep.
like, if that's what it's giving me, then I feel as though it's probably going to hit home deep inside of a person potentially.
Yeah.
So with that, the the thing that it is that I can't come up with the name, it's like a swirly thing where it shows event, anger, then you're depressed, then
Yeah.
whatever. Um, and in his story, there wasn't the final resolution. There was death instead of that.
Sure.
So it was just with this, it was okay. So we have this image, but it's going to be cut off here. I was like, cool. So it looks like a snake with its fucking head cut off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So literally the cut in the head of the snake is exactly where on the timeline the resolution would have been.
Mm.
So then with that, it was just okay. Where can we take that? We got a graphic designer to design us a custom snakeskin background that we could use for whatever. Um, we rented a snake for music videos. We
That's cool.
put it on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of I feel as though probably the best answer of how to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a really good answer. That was a better answer than I was expecting.
thanks.
Yeah. There's no insult to you. It was just like, wow. I mean, I really love the way you explain things. It's very clear. You know, it's almost like, duh. Why wouldn't you do it that way? You know?
I try to always take things down to the simplest possible
Yeah.
starting point because I feel everything is simple.
Sure. I mean, it can
Yeah,
be. Yeah, as long as people don't overcomplicate it. You know.
right. Humans are the things that make things difficult.
Right, right. Yeah, there's this
Yeah.
quote, and I'm gonna bring the nerd out of me a little bit, but it's the quote is, "We are not the datum other than our own egotistical mindset," and it
Mm,
encompasses so many things, and that's one of them. We overcomplicate everything, you know, just because we
yeah.
feel like we know more. You know, it's
I
crazy.
I do it in my own life. The
Yeah.
only thing I don't do it in is when I'm managing and promoting a band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I guess that I mean if that's the way that it works out, that's great, you know?
Yeah.
Do you feel like release strategies should change over time, or or do you kind of adapt it to whatever's going on?
Yeah. So when we launched the band, so I moved to Atlanta 7 years ago. Started working at the Masquerade like 5 years ago, I guess.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm marketing in Atlanta. I need to learn about hip hop, right? I'm in Mecca.
Yep.
So started going to some local shows, some up and coming shows, like just all the normal stuff I would in the metal scene, but just hip hop. Started making friends with some of the managers and label people and stuff like that. Um, then a manager friend of mine, and a pretty big producer. He's like works with like the Migos and stuff.
Oh
We
wow.
the three of us went to go see Juice World. This is
Cool.
like 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't know anything about him at that point. When we got the show confirmation, I literally made a joke that was like, "This sounds like a vape store." Like, like I don't know what a Juice World is. I
Right,
feel
right.
bad now, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, my friend was like, "Yo, yeah, me and my producer are going to that Juice World show. Come with us." Okay, cool. Went with them. Within 30 seconds of him playing, I turned to those two guys and I was like, "Have you ever heard of Taking Back Sunday before?" And they were like, "Yeah, we've heard the name." I'm like, "This is Taking Back Sunday, just modern."
Yeah.
That's what I got from that. But anyway, so I started researching. Then Juice World, Trippy Red. Then came Lil Baby, Da Baby, Lil Durk, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And I noticed a pattern of a release strategy. So I brought this discovered pattern to some of my friends, and they were like, "Yeah, that's literally it." Like
That's amazing.
every single artist goes through like the same 18-month strategy where they're releasing 80 to 100 songs in a year and a half.
Damn.
So they're doing full album, project, mixtape, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're doing 3 of those. One, 9 months later, another, 9 months later, another. No singles or anything leading up to them. Those are just boom, full. Here's 18, 22, 25 tracks,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in between, they're doing 10 to 20 singles, super singles push, half of which are their own singles and half of which are other prominent or other accompanying artists that they're the main feature on.
Okay.
So boom, album, 20 singles, album, 20 singles, album. And basically it's like they call it total saturation.
Mm-hmm.
So just for 18 months, they saturate the market with just blitz the market with as much as humanly possible. And it's like at the end of it, 90% of the market will have heard the name and will have made their mind up somewhat on the
Okay.
artist. So I'm like, yeah, it makes total sense, consistent, all that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so that was it was just us copying hip
Yeah.
hop is
Right.
what basically what. But as I said a little bit before, as the band grows, things for sure I do think change because like Bring Me the Horizon could disappear for 5 years if they wanted to
Mm-hmm.
and come back and still be huge.
Right.
Left to Suffer could not.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Like we have a lot of buzz right now. They're crushing it and they're on the path
Yep.
to being a band like that. But if they were to disappear for 5 years right now,
Yeah.
like
It wouldn't be good.
the whole world's going to change.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's kind of the other analogy I use is this one's funny. Um, you watch Family Guy at all?
Yes.
So there's the episode where they're trying to capture, I think the actor guy,
um. He was
Adam
Adam
West.
West. Yeah, I was gonna say he
No,
was the
not Adam.
mayor.
Maybe not Adam West. Who's the other
They
guy?
had a couple. Oh, was it?
James Woods,
What was it?
maybe.
James Woods. Okay, because I know they
Yeah.
Stewie had one with um, Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise.
Oh, little Tom
Yeah, little
Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this was a James Woods episode,
Okay.
and he's like running a mess, and they're trying to capture him, and they decided to have a really long trail of candy
Yep.
that leads to a box. Ooh, piece of
Yep.
candy.
Ooh,
Ooh,
piece of
piece of
Yeah.
candy.
Yep.
Ooh, piece. And the candy
Yeah.
is put at a distance far enough away where it moves him along the path,
Yep.
but it's close enough where he can see the next piece, so he continues on the path, right?
Mm-hmm.
I look at content dripping exactly like that.
Okay.
And as the brand gets stronger, the distance between the pieces of candy can grow bigger.
I'm putting that one in the footnotes. Yep.
Cool.
You actually mentioned something earlier with artists doing features. Do you find value in an artist, maybe a local artist, hiring a vocalist who is in a larger band? And by larger, I don't mean like your larger regional. I mean like larger touring band. Do you find value in having and hiring their vocalist to do a feature of your song, or do you feel like it's a waste of money?
Well, I would like to think because started the site featuredx.com, but I'm super pro feature.
Right. Which is
Um,
why I thought it was a good question.
I think it's amazing because like just having that person on your song, the likelihood of getting more people to actually stop their life to give you their attention for 2 to 3 minutes is going to go up dramatically.
Yes. Yep.
If it's versus if it's just a song by a band that they've never heard of, even if it's the best song ever written.
Sure.
So just from a discovery point of view, like, and not only will kids, as I like to call it, the marketplace fans
Yeah.
check it out, but the likelihood of the fucking industry checking it out is
Yeah.
going to go up too.
That's true.
So,
Is there a
yeah,
certain like time amount of time that artist to be featured? Like, or it's just a couple sentences, a whole verse, or what are your thoughts on that? Because I've seen some that like they just kind of said a couple of words, and then it's like, well, I listened to this whole song and I didn't get anything out of it. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'd like to think that it really is dependent on the song and what I'm hoping that they're serving the song and trying to give the song what it needs rather than trying to jam a feature on a song just for the sake of it.
Right. Yep.
I'm very anti doing things just because it's cool
Hmm.
or
Looks
because
good.
this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I honestly don't see any downside in features whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems so obvious to me that you look at what are the biggest genres of music, right?
Yeah.
Hip hop, EDM, probably in the last decade, right?
Yep.
It's like, what do those artists do that rock bands don't do? They put out music infinitely more often and they collab with each other endlessly.
Yes. Absolutely.
So it was just like it just makes sense to me. We're gonna do that with Left to Suffer.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna put out music more often, and there's no rules
Right.
either.
Right.
No fucking rules. We're gonna collab with everyone that we think is cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, Post Malone does it all the time, and sometimes he'll do 6 artists on one track, and it's just like, man, it's impressive, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get to that point.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we've had two people on a song,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's still cool. Um, so this kind of revolves around the marketing aspect of things. Uh, Obviously, digital marketing is changing all the time. There's always
yeah.
trends changing, strategies. What are the kind of things that you look at from the back end of things and to look for it ahead of time versus getting into it when it's already started?
Um I used to just listen to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he would just tell you what, because I was on TikTok 5 years probably before it was a
Sure.
thing
Yeah.
because he was into Musically,
Mm,
and Musically turned into TikTok, and like
right.
it was like a whole thing. So there was Musically and like four other apps
Yep.
at the
I
time that he was
remember that
playing
one.
with. So I was just playing with
Yeah.
them, and it was, you know, I'm never really trying to be there first, I don't think.
Yeah.
It's just a matter for me, it's just simple. In 1999, when I started to book shows before the internet,
Yeah.
I had to pass out flyers and put up posters in the places that people I thought that demographic would be at, right?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
so it's like, okay, I would go to other shows. Duh. I would go to the arcade at every mall, like brick and mortar arcade.
Yeah.
That was the place to go to pass out flyers and put up posters because that's where all the weird alt kids hung out back in the day before there was Twitch and
Right.
You know what I mean? So for me, it's just as simple as I just go to promote wherever the demographic is.
Okay.
So if everyone abandons TikTok to go to
Threads.
whatever tomorrow, it's just like,
Yeah.
cool, then let's just go there. Like, yeah, just not being emotionally attached to it,
Right.
and just
Do you feel
we're
like
just
we're getting to
following the
that
herd.
point
We're just
soon?
following the herd. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Do you feel
What?
like we're getting to that point soon with TikTok because of the oversaturation almost now? With it, it seems like everybody is on TikTok trying to do something different, and it's just a mind fuck.
every every platform goes through the same life cycle
Yeah.
where it it TikTok had that period where you know the supply and the demand were were distributed in such a way that the likelihood of the supply taking off was just so much higher.
Sure.
Now, I mean, now you have 1,000 more people putting out 100,000 more pieces of content,
Yes.
right? So you have 1,000 more batters, each putting 10 more balls into the outfield
Right.
than the last 2 years. So every platform, will have the beginning where people don't like it, and then it has its viral moment where then a lot of people will make their career on it, and then what ends up happening is the rest of the people come at the end, and then they just slow it down and they bring it to where it just normally is.
Right.
Now it's just turning into Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. Yeah, Snapchat was
Yeah.
like that too. It was
Yep.
very big, especially as a way for engagement.
Everyone likes the new
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's the new weird kid in school
I'm
for
curious
the
to
first
see
day.
how
Everyone
Threads does, with the new being the new thing because it's still so early, A lot of people are kind of just tipping their
it's very
toes
early.
in the water a bit and seeing how it goes.
I mean, I think the way that they rolled it out was really good,
Yeah.
and uh, having it connected to your Instagram, so basically everybody already has an account and
Right.
all that's like they made it very easy, which is to me that's one of the most important things is trying to make um, the friction as little as possible for the end
Yep. The
person.
consumer. Yeah.
Like, not just so it's like a stupid example is just posting, "Hey, we have a new music video out," versus posting that with the link to the music video, right?
Mm.
Like asking somebody to go and search on YouTube for it and do that work, they're never gonna do it.
No.
I read a I read a book a long time ago, and they had this one section that talked about, I think it was Holland, the Netherlands, or Denmark, one of those countries in Europe, where they would take polling of their of the people, and it was like 78 or 82% of the population uh, agreed with um, organ doning and
Okay.
all of that stuff, but they had the smallest percentage of their population actually signed up to be organ donors of any country in Europe.
Interesting.
And they didn't know why. And so they, hired somebody to do a research and blah, 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 blah. And what they discovered was very simple. And then once I heard this once, so many things just made sense
Yeah.
to me. And it was just like in America, you can become an organ donor when you get your license, right? At that point, up until that point in time, in order to become an organ donor, you had to opt in and fill out another piece of paper.
Mm.
So, what did they do? They just switched it to you automatically are opted in. And if you want to opt out of being an organ donor, you have to fill out an extra piece of
Wow.
paper. And within like 2 years, it was like,
Yeah.
boom, fixed
The
it,
old
done.
switcheroo.
Yeah. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that just makes so much sense. Like,
Yeah.
people don't like doing
Yeah. Well,
things. Yeah.
on top of that, back to the threads specific thing was if you delete your Threads account, you delete your Instagram account too.
Oh, they got you there
Yeah.
then.
So there's no going back and saying, "Hey, I don't want to be an organ donor anymore." You signed up.
Yeah.
You're in it.
Yeah, there's no go
No
back.
going back.
Yeah, and I think Twitter changing its
The
name to
X.
X is probably the best thing to ever happen to
What is it
Threads.
with
Yeah,
Elon
I don't know
Musk
what
and
he's
the
doing.
X letter? Because his kids' name all have X's in it or something. I mean, it's SpaceX, X.
He's he's just
I mean,
he's
it's a
he's
cool
just a
letter. I'll give
weirdo.
it to
I don't
him.
know. I love the guy, to be
Yeah, yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Like,
Oh, I do too. I'm a big fan of
I,
him. I'm only talking shit out of love.
I understand the people that don't like him though
Right.
too.
Yes,
I
I get
just
why.
feel as though I feel as though I'm probably more similar to
Yeah.
him in a lot of
Yep.
ways, with like maybe a touch of autism,
Yep.
maybe a touch of this, that, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like, whatever. So I'm like, when he says a lot of the things that he says that pisses people
Yeah.
off, I'm like,
Hey, that sounds like something I would say.
I know he's just being a freaking troll
Right.
because
Right.
he's rich enough to can afford to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't think he believes half the things that he says. I
Yep.
think he's just being a
Did
a
you
troll.
watch the
Like, yeah,
monologue he did for SNL?
I did.
Yeah.
Yes,
That
I
whole
remember that.
interaction was like where most people were like, "Whoa, what is wrong with this guy?" And I'm just like, honestly,
Right.
he's just Elon. He's the Muskers. It's what he is. It's
Well, it's like as he got more and more popular and whatnot, and people started like noticing and talking about how he like stares off into
yeah.
space when he's like talking and thinking, and I'm
Yep.
like, I
Yeah,
do that.
yeah, yeah. I think you and I are a lot
I'm
alike
like,
here.
don't make fun of me. I'm like, if you're making fun of him, you're
Yeah.
making fun of me. What the
Yep, yeah,
heck?
yeah, absolutely. It's more so I hate to say it's anxiety based, but it almost is. It's like a
100%.
predispositioned anxiety, that you get when you're talking to somebody.
I've met someone before who, after I was introduced to them, I was told by so many people about how much of a dick piece of crap that they were.
Yeah.
And after getting to know them, I was just like, they just have the worst anxiety out of
Yes.
anyone I've ever met. So they're just constantly like
Right,
this.
right.
That's all that it
Yeah.
is. They're not being a dick at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean
yeah,
honestly though, I mean, with your personality type, you're very like high functioning. You're always looking at the outside perspective of things and saying, why are people doing it that way? That makes no sense. Do it this way. You know, I do the same exact thing, so I completely
I've been
understand.
doing it since I've been like 5 years
Yep,
old.
absolutely. So I
Yeah.
understand entirely where you're coming from with that. So very cool to relate in that.
Yeah, it was like by the time I got into high school, I was like, yeah, I know that all of this is
Right.
stupid. Like, why are we
Yeah.
doing this? Like, I
I
don't
tell
know.
you, it served me well in the engineering field, of looking at
I'm
things from an
sure.
outside perspective and being like, I know we're doing it this
Right.
way and we've been doing it for a while because it works, but it doesn't work very well. Why would we do it?
My the bane of my existence, my least favorite thing ever, is anything that is similar to that's the way things are. That's the way it
Right, right.
is. That's the way it's been
Yeah.
done. Anything, and I'm just like, but it doesn't have to.
Right.
Just because somebody who was in charge 100 years ago did it awfully doesn't mean we can't fix it now. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. So, but anyway, go back to the interview or the questions here. We got a couple more minutes left, so
Yeah.
I'll ask one more question. Then I'll let you go, and we'll go into. Can you give me the most memorable experience in your entire career where you felt like you made a significant impact?
The top one.
We'll give top couple.
So there's a couple for
Yeah.
sure. One, I mean, early on when I was when I after I booked my first show, there's like a 3,100 capacity venue that's in Poughkeepsie where we were from. So like at first it was like, yeah, one day, 30 or 40 years, I'm going to do a show there.
Yeah.
And it was like, 8 years after starting to book shows, I sold it out 3 times.
Mm,
Um, so that, so that being the first
right.
one and accomplishing like some crazy goal very
Yeah,
early
that's
on.
awesome.
In 2013, I think, um, I was a part of the Skate and Surf Festival, which
I
one of the
remember that.
headliners was the Fall Out Boy
Yeah.
reunion. So I'm literally the guy that leaked the information about the Fall Out Boy
No
reunion
shit.
because we were announcing the festival with them a week later and going on
Yeah.
sale. So I'm literally called up the press, who I was friends with. I'm not going to say his name, but everybody probably knows who it
Yeah.
is. I'm just like, hey, this is what's happening. Do you want the story? But you can't say it came from us, type
Right,
thing.
right.
Like literal media manipulation
Sure.
type
Yeah.
stuff. But literally, it was like, it broke the internet. And a week later, we announced our festival and it sold out. So
Damn.
great. Um, then in 2013, when Black Friday, when we dropped the sworn in Death Card hoodie
Yeah.
and yeah, crashed the all in merch store like 7 times that
What
night.
an amazing
And
feeling.
we sold like, yeah, sold like 2,500 hoodies.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Oh my god. How
yeah,
long did
that
it
was
take you to
cool.
get all those out? Were you prepared for that?
Oh, I mean, the merch company
Oh, so
printed
it
it
was a
and
print on
shipped it out.
demand or yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was. Hey, this is the Black Friday sale. It's up for,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like 40, 48
Sure,
hours or
sure.
something like that. And yeah, 2,500 orders, and then boom,
Damn.
they printed them and shipped it out.
I bet they
But
loved
yeah,
you.
so that was a lot. We made a lot of money in one
Yeah,
day for
yeah.
sure.
Hell yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, and then I honestly, the day that we launched Featured X too,
Yeah. Can you actually tell me
was
more
pretty.
about that? I know I said it was going to be my last question, but I am curious about Feature Desk X.
I can go a little bit longer. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah, so the pandemic hit, and so at the time I was the marketing director at the
yeah.
Masquerade. We did, in Atlanta they do about 800 shows a
Sure.
year. Um, so we can't. We had just finished up a week or two of just canceling and postponing like hundreds and hundreds of
Sure.
shows. Got sent home, and it's like, okay, until further notice, we're just sitting at home working on. At the time, Left to Suffer was recording the On Death EP,
Mm.
and it was like, okay, we what features do we want to try and get for this? And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there was just a website you could just go to and just be like, yeah, this is the feature I want,
Yeah.
and buy it?
Right.
and and everyone was like, yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Uh, so then it was just literally like, okay, like let's find somebody who can build it, and then let's give everybody literally from like conception of the idea until it was launched was like 6 weeks.
Wow. That was a quick turnaround.
the Yeah, way too
Yeah.
quick. I would not do it that way
Yeah.
again if we had a
Do not
redo.
recommend.
No, 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 no. Going that
Yeah.
fast is a little too fast. Um, but yeah, it was just simple as that. It was as simple as I wanted to be able to have a way of getting features for Left to Suffer
Yeah.
that was easier than trying to DM people on Instagram or
Right, right.
email managers or any of that stuff. And so obviously also the pandemic hitting and stopping touring, I really believe helped the website because
Yeah.
a lot of the people that were on there needed that money that they were making from doing those features.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many people and how many bands reached out to us like at the end of that
Yeah.
year and we're just like, yo, this saved my year, like
That's
literally,
amazing.
like yeah. So it was just like, geez. Um,
I feel like that's a highlight moment too of your career. Of just getting
yeah,
that
it really
satisfaction of
was.
being able to help people, who were in a time of need.
Yeah, the first time we got one of those messages, it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like we did good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it ended up, the website doesn't exist anymore,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, I don't know if it will come back or not. The guy who owns it currently, I'm not really sure what the heck he's trying to do with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um, so it sucks to see something that you created just get destroyed quicker than it was
Right. A lot of potential.
made.
Yeah.
Right, so much potential, but learned a lot,
Yeah.
and it's going to help me in my next
Yeah.
thing. So,
And I mean, so Cameo started coming around too, and they're doing sort of similar to that.
literally, it was around the time where I think Cameo was going from like F celebrities
Yeah.
to D
Yep.
celebrities, right? Because they started at the bottom and they've worked their way
Yep.
up. And around that time was when all of my Facebook and Instagram feeds, I'm getting hit by tons of Cameo ads,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, literally, when I came up with the idea, I'm probably just saw one of those ads, thinking about features. I'm in the shower.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it just makes sense just to do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It literally was basically the same thing.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? In a way.
Yeah.
Um,
That's cool, man. Yeah.
yeah.
That's all I got for this podcast. I'm sure we're gonna talk more outside of this because you seem like an interesting guy, and I feel like we could get along very well. We got a lot of similarities. So
Absolutely
yeah,
appreciate it.
man, and I'd love to have you back on again and talk more. Strategies, marketing stuff. I feel like an hour is almost never enough time, but in terms of retention, we talked about this before. An hour is kind of the sweet spot. So anything more, people are like, I'm
Yes,
not going to
absolutely.
listen to that.
And it's always funny to me because I always feel like 40 minutes into a
Yeah.
podcast is when I at least start like catch my
And
stride and I'm
actually,
like,
I was
oh,
going to say, according to my numbers, it's about 45, 50. So, yeah. But
yeah,
I get the extra 20 minutes for personal reasons, because I like talking. Yeah, man.
awesome.
All right, man. Well, yeah. I'll let you know when it releases. Thanks for coming on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
You
Talk to you
too.
soon.